Thanks for liking the video. Thanks for watching the video. Make sure you're liking, subscribing. You're all in at fantasypoints.com. Fantasy points data is taking over the world, but the point of my video today is to offer up a little recap of free agency. I've been a little bit of a Captain Buzzkill when it comes to free agency, and I think it's fair because you go back and you look, and it's usually 80% crap in terms of the players who move to new teams. But we do have some moves that are pretty interesting. Good year for the running backs. So I thought I'd do some non obvious stuff here in my top five low key free agent pickups of the year or underrated signings, however you want to frame it. Let's start with number five. This may surprise some people. Not a great year for quarterback movement. I tried to avoid the Pittsburgh Steelers situation there with Russell Wilson and Justin Fields. I do go with a quarterback, though, believe it or not, at five. And again, little surprising, Joe Flacco signing a 1 year deal, $4.5 million, could be worth up to $8.7 million to back up Anthony Richardson for the Indianapolis Colts. And I think this is obviously very important. I'm including it on my list, but I think the Indy Colts are probably a skill player away right now from having a really nice offense with AR and bringing back Michael Pittman. I love Josh Downs as a slot receiver. I do like Alec Pierce too, but I think we bump him down the depth chart, probably rotational guy. Get someone with a little more juice and a little more lateral ability. Alec Pierce, a little straight line-ish in terms of his play, can get open deep, but we need a little bit more of a dynamic run after the catch threat guy there. Josh Downs can do some of that, but I think one more receiver and we're looking really good. And also a tight end. They could draft a tight end. Maybe Jelani Woods can come over, get over that hamstring that literally knocked him out the entire season. He does have a lot of talent. And I also do like Will Mallory. It's a pretty good offensive line. So what could go wrong for the Colts this year right now? Let's assume they get a decent receiver in the draft. Well, Anthony Richardson going down, that could go wrong. They did lose Gardner Minshew. That was a savvy pickup last year, but Joe Flacco is better than Gardner Minshew. And by the way, I went back and I looked. That's how important a backup quarterback is. And look, if we draft Michael Pittman or Josh Downs or even Jonathan Taylor for that matter, we want to get quarterback play that's competent in Indy, and Joe Flacco will provide that. 32 by my count. I think it's 34, but 32 backup quarterbacks got to start last year. And I went and looked on the internet. One article said 66 different quarterbacks started in 2023. That was absolutely ridiculous. But Joe Flacco won the Comeback Player of the Year award, despite not having odds to be in the running for that award. Multiple touchdowns in all five of his regular season starts. He averaged 323 yards passing per game, 60% completion rate. He did throw some picks there, 8 INTs, but he was QB3 with 22 fantasy points per game in 5 starts. Now, look, the numbers aren't all that great. He finished 39th in completion percentage over expectation among 42 quarterbacks who attempted 150 plus passes. But this is all per fantasy points data. He also finished second in deep throw rate at 14% and sixth in YPA. So he's chucking the ball down the field. They were scheming David Njoku and Amari Cooper open, and Flacco was getting those dudes the pill. I was actually joking about it because I'm a South Jersey guy, just like Joe Flacco. We happen to go to the same pizzeria. This is literally a week or two, three before he signed with the Browns, still living in Southern New Jersey. I'm like, look, the guy's got great decision making. He's got great taste in pizza. Enough said. I was kind of semi-serious there. Obviously, I was serious because I thought Flacco threw the ball extremely well with the Jets the year before and the year before that. So I thought he still could play, and clearly he can. So this stabilizes the Colt guys. You feel better about them. And even in a deep competitive league, not that the Colts are going to be an aerial circus, but this should be a very good offense. I might even go quarterback handcuff here with Joe Flacco to protect that investment of Anthony Richardson. Let's go to number 4 on the list, even though it is boring as hell. But the New York Giants signed Devin Singletary to a 3-year, $16.5 million deal worth up to $19.5 million in incentives. He is the fantasy cockroach, and I mean that in the most flattering way possible, because Devin Singletary will not go away. I actually interviewed this dude at the combine. Nice guy, boring as hell, no frills, and that's who he is. And that's fine, because Brian Daboll, I'm sure, will trust him profusely compared to anyone else on the roster, because right now they only have, who is it? Eric Gray, who did nothing as a rookie, and I thought he had a chance, and Gary Brightwell. I don't know why they have Gary Brightwell. He's done a couple of different things, but Devin Singletary is going to be the guy here. He'll probably exceed the 54% snap share that he had last year and a 48% carry share. Ran a bunch of routes, 271 routes. So Dayball, again, will likely trust him. And he is good in terms of creating yards before contact. He was 14th in yards before contact among 58 running backs with at least 70 touches per fantasy points data. He'll need that lateral agility, that wiggle that he's always had, and really good contact balance. He'll need that behind the Giants' offensive line that's not very good. But the hope is, I mean, can Evan Neal just not absolutely suck like he did last year? I mean, this is a number 1 draft pick, a pretty high draft pick. I don't know what we're doing with this guy. Maybe they're not even counting on him. I see him might even be replaced, but they had John Runyon, who was a little bit of a disappointment there in Green Bay, and Aaron Stinney. So again, he's going to be a little boring, but he will be the guy. He's been good for 29 catches and 151 carries in each of his first 5 years. Granted, he moves from a pretty good Houston offense to a shaky Giants offense, but a lot to be said for the volume there. Last year, 13.5 fantasy points per game, final 12 games for Houston. He'll probably be right around there somewhere this year for the Giants. And again, we'll see what they do in the draft, but it's not a very good draft class. They have other needs, so they'll probably add a day 3 back, but that person most likely won't seriously challenge Singletary for snappage. Number 3 on my list. Got to get this guy on here. I am an apologist. Darnell Mooney signing with the Atlanta Falcons, 3-year deal, $39 million deal that includes $26 million guaranteed. He kind of bet on himself last year. They were apparently ready to sign him to an extension because they've always liked Darnell Mooney, and he bet on himself. It didn't go well. And if I'm Darnell Mooney, I'm like, get me the hell out of here. Now, granted, Justin Fields, of course, ironically, has also departed. But that was after Mooney was acquired, and he's would have been working with a rookie quarterback no matter what. Instead, for the Atlanta Falcons, he goes to Zach Robinson's offense. They play, he's a Sean McVay disciple. They play a lot of 11 personnel. Darnell Mooney typically lines up in the slot about 60% of the time, but certainly he is a solid perimeter guy. He is a great vertical threat. I know people are annoyed with me a little bit because I've kind of oversold him. They weren't laughing, though, in 2021, by the way, when he was the wide receiver 31 on the season, despite having an ADP of wide receiver 58. My contention, and I guess the reason I talk about him is when I see a player who is a lot better than the perception, I can't help but kind of harp on a little bit. Mooney last year, 9th in yards per reception among 81 wide receivers who saw 50 plus targets. And that's playing with Justin Fields. And that was a tough spot and made it even tougher. Previously it's like Mooney was miscast as a 1 due to necessity. And then he finally goes to a better situation, or he gets a better situation with DJ Moore there. And Justin Fields pretty much ignored him, but Kirk Cousins will not ignore him. I can envision his role and his production and big play abilities to be similar to Jordan Addison in Minnesota, of course, with Darnell Mooney's new quarterback, Kirk Cousins. Mooney runs a 4.38 40. He may have been a little miscast as a 1 because he's not big. He's a little too finesse, but he's also like a cat off the line, very quick, very good body control and the ability to make some acrobatic catches. I mean, go Google Darnell Mooney if you're thinking of making this up. He does have great ability downfield. We just have not seen it much with the Bears. I thought Fields was going to unlock Mooney. Didn't happen because Mooney's rookie, if you recall, was really good, but man, Nick Foles that year could not get him the ball. So I really like that fit there in Atlanta. Let's go to number 2 on the list. Aaron Jones going to the division rival Minnesota Vikings. 1-year deal. So it's like a 1-year, year-to-year guy. At this point, he's 30 years old. But once the Packers signed Josh Jacobs, my man Aaron Jones needed less than 24 hours before he found a new home. And last year, we all know we need to bake into the equation the availability issues, the soft tissue problems, but my man can still get it done. He's still very explosive. 5 straight 100-yard rushing games to end the season, postseason included. He was at 4.6 yards a carry, 7.8 yards per reception. He also led all runners. He's always had this really good knack to avoid getting hit behind the line of scrimmage. Led all runners with just a 35.9% stuff rate. He ranked 10th in yards before contact per attempt per fantasy points data among running backs who saw 100 carries. That was 49 of them. Now, I think he'll actually be used a little bit more in Minnesota. They're going to need him. They're going to be breaking in most likely a rookie quarterback. Kevin O'Connell has shown that he'll give the primary back plenty of work on all down. So I think he'll exceed the 49.6% snap share he had last year and the 48% carry share that he had with the Packers. I've long said that LaFleur there in Green Bay was always very judicious with how he used him, and it was smart. They did kind of extend the career a little bit, but we are in dangerous territory in year 8 at 30, but the Vikings do have a pretty good offensive line. Brian Flores coached up the defense pretty well. They should be in their games. I'm assuming they're going to get a quarterback. Granted, that's a little scary, and Sam Darnold is not the best quarterback to rely on. And you do have Ty Chandler in the mix, but I did like that one there for Aaron Jones, who I think can sneak one more nice season out of that 30-year-old body there in Minnesota. Then last but not least, it is another running back. When teams sign volume backs, primary backs, fantasy production should follow if the health is there. And it's another older guy, but this one a little younger than Aaron Jones. He's 28, and it's Joe Mixon, who was acquired. Technically, this was a trade from the Cincinnati Bengals in exchange for only a conditional 7th-round pick, but he then did sign a 3-year extension with $13 million guaranteed. Again, 28 years old, certainly has been handling a lot of volume over the years, no doubt about it. He's averaged over 16 carries per game and just under 3 grabs per game since he came into the league in 2017. And look, I think the wear and tear is taking a toll. He's not the same player, ranked just 37th in yards after contact per attempt and 36th in explosive run rate among running backs with at least 100 carries. There was 49 of them. But I would attribute some of the poor data on Mixon, like the zone runs weren't great, for example. I mean, he is a good zone runner. That's like his deal, and that will be the deal there in Houston. I would maybe attribute the numbers not looking great to the O-line for the Cincinnati Bengals, which has been perennially underwhelming, to be kind. And I do think we get a little upgrade here in O-line with the Houston Texans. O-line's coached up really well, too. They had all kinds of injuries last year, and you almost couldn't even tell. CJ Stroud was really good. And speaking of Stroud, yes, on one hand, he doesn't check it down a ton. The Texan running backs saw the second fewest targets last year with Stroud at quarterback. Now, part of that was, I'm sure, a function of him being a rookie. So, I mean, he'll be a little more experienced. Maybe he'll get to that check down a little more often, but it's probably more of a function of him being an aggressive thrower of the football, which I think is good because he's kind of the straw that stirs the Texan drink offensively, which is a good spot for Joe Mixon to be in at this stage of his career. So it will be a good offense they will move the ball. They'll have myriad scoring opportunities every week. He'll likely play well over Dameon Pierce and not likely to get much love ADP wise. I didn't really get into a lot of ADP data here. It's still a little early in the game, but none of these guys are going to be seventh round picks or earlier off the board. I would guess maybe Jones or Mixon will go off the board sixth round, but I don't think the markets are going to pay up too much for aging running backs. Though, if they can stay in one piece and suit up most weeks, they're going to get it done with some really good volume there. So that's what I have. Not the greatest list, but we're talking under the radar free agent acquisitions. Thank you for checking out the video and going all the way through, and make sure you continue liking and subscribing. Fantasy points data will, in fact, take over the world. Until next time, I'm John Hanson. We'll catch you in the next video.